I was at my limit and I just said, I can't do this anymore. So either you seek help or I want a divorce. Going through infertility, I kind of stopped living my life. I do wish I would have lived more, meaning like I wouldn't have not gone shopping because I was worried that I was maybe going to get pregnant. My life revolved around that. Time passes no matter what. When you're going through this, everything's out of your control, that you try to control whatever you think you can. And I still have the guilt. We had one normal embryo left and I told my husband, I don't want to do it. I'm done. I could barely roll out of bed. Trusting your gut, trusting that you have the answers, you have the knowledge and power to go seek more knowledge and power, and trust yourself that you can get to the place that works for you, because motherhood looks different for every single person. Everything has been hard, and that's okay. I think it like makes it that much sweeter.
Hi, Erin. Welcome to All Over Again podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
I'm so excited you're here.
I'm excited to be here.
So I'm very excited to be introducing Erin Bulcao today. Erin and I met virtually
So long ago.
during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Via the online fertility and fertility community. And you moved to New York City.
I did. I'm here.
You're here. So there's so many things to talk about.
So many things.
Erin, you share a lot on your platforms.
Some would say overshare.
You know what? It makes you very relatable and approachable because you share so much. So thank you. And I think a lot of people feel less alone because they can relate.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I mean, it kind of became my therapy, to be honest, to share. I didn't realize I needed to share until I did, and it just felt so good. And that's why.
So was there a moment?
You know, it was like years of pretending like things were okay, which I think so many of us do. And then on the side, kind of having to explain individually to people, you know, whether it was IVF, whether it was a tough marriage, that finally I was like, you know, I feel like I need to write this down. And then a friend of mine, so I did. I wrote like 10 essays, blogs, whatever you want to call them. And a friend of mine was like, well, now are you going to share them? I'm like, yeah. She's just like, how? I'm like, I have no idea. Because I had Instagram, but it was just to share cute photos, you know, like pretend like everything's fine. And then she's like, you know, you should create an account specific to just sharing everything, your journey essentially, or like the hard. I said, okay. So she taught me about hashtags. I had no idea. And so I did that. And I started by just sharing a blog entry a week. And it kind of just opened all these doors with finding that community and finding people that were able to relate to infertility, IVF, marriage hardships, everything. And from there, it kind of started to roll into this whole just raw and authentic share. But people and community and feeling seen made me feel like I could continue to share and like I could continue to be open and be myself and be real. And then honestly, it became my therapy. I'm so grateful and thankful for people because they truly helped me feel comfortable in like my own skin and feel comfortable sharing and opening up. And people will say like, thank you for sharing, you're helping me. But honestly, people helped me, if that makes sense. I was sharing because it was helping me. And it became kind of like a therapy as I was going through all this stuff. And honestly, it kind of still does, different paths of life like lead to different things, And so I feel like even today, even though I'm not going through infertility right now, or, that door has closed, there's always something hard that we're going through that somebody else probably can relate to.
1,000%. So on that note, if you could do anything all over again, what would it be?
It would be IVF and infertility. I mean, not infertility, it'd be IVF, right? Because as you know, that's how I have a family. You know, the twins were an IUI, and then years later, Ariella was IVF, and I would do it all over again. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah. I mean, what would you do all over again? Is there something that you would, if you could go back in time and you could say, okay, there's this one thing that I would do differently? Or does that, or is there anything that ever haunts you that you feel like I would do this particular thing differently? Or what if I had done this thing differently? Do you have any of those reservations, or is it obviously things are really great the way they have come to be and come to pass at the end, right? Like when you look at you today. But is there a moment where you ever second guess or wonder, if I had this chance to do that one thing, to go back in time, what would it be that I would do all over again?
Yes, obviously I'm here today because of everything else, right? But I always say this, and I try to give this piece of unsolicited advice to anybody that asks or doesn't ask. But going through infertility, I kind of stopped living my life. And so while I would say, while I can sit here and say I would do IVF all over again because it led to my kids, I do wish that if I had the opportunity to go back in time, I do wish I would have lived more. I was worried that I was maybe going to get pregnant, or that IVF was going to do this, or, I kept saying, I'm not going to do this until I'm pregnant, or I don't want to travel until this next transfer, this next egg retrieval, or my life revolved around that. So if you show me photos from, the minute we started treatments until, having Ariella, which was a total of almost 4 years, I can tell you where I was in my cycle. And I can tell you where I was with my transfers, with my retrievals, how I was feeling emotionally just around IVF and infertility. And that makes me sad because I did have my twins there. And it's not like we didn't do things. I know I was there for them, but I feel like, as I'm sure you know, and most people that go through this know, it takes over your brain in a way where you just can't turn it off. And I don't know if there's a way or a solution to turn it off. I think my therapist would say you can't. So it's okay to sit in that. But time passes no matter what, and I think when you're going through this, everything's out of your control, that you try to control whatever you think you can. And I think that if I had let go of that a little bit more and just been like, okay, we can go on this vacation. Like I still have to wait X amount of time, or like going on a vacation is not going to affect my embryo attaching, or, the results of my egg retrieval. It's not going to affect it. But I felt like I couldn't do much until that part of my life was figured out.
It's almost paralyzing. And I've been there, so I understand that. Your road was substantially longer, right? You have 3 children, twins, and then a third daughter. So will you share a little bit about what that looked like? And also, I have to know, when you talk about, so this is a double header. Okay. When you talk about not, living, did it at all kind of keep you back from being entirely present with your twins?
100%. I mean, I can answer that really quick.
Okay.
Yes. And that's, I think, what, as a mom, as a person, it makes you sad, because I do look, like I said, if you show me a photo of, I don't know, we were at a carnival one day, and I can tell you and say, oh, I had just, miscarried, or I had just suffered from whatever it was, instead of like, oh, that was really fun time at the fair. We ate fried Oreos. I don't know. So those are the kind of thoughts that come into my head when I look at photos, rather than like what was happening in the moment. So yes, 100%. I do wish I could have been more present with what was happening, but it's so hard.
So hard.
So hard.
Did you feel like you had any guilt though?
Yes. And I still have the guilt. I
don't think that part goes away. I mean,
No.
I think perpetual like mom guilt is like a real thing. But I'm asking you about the guilt too, because I remember doing this, like trying again after having had my daughter. And it was so hard, and I felt so guilty because I felt like it was taking me away both mentally and physically. So, but I want to hear like your thoughts, because you were convinced and, very convicted that you were going to have this third, and you did. But tell us about what that looked like.
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, to answer your question, yes, I always felt really guilty. And also outside comments were really, really difficult, because even
Being so
people that
public.
were friends even like friends and family would say, well, you already have twins. Like, why do you need more? Why are you continuing to try when it's failed? Or why all the questions that no one would ever say to somebody that wasn't having difficulty getting pregnant.
Sure.
Like a friend comes up to you like, we're going to try for our second. You'd be like, amazing, no questions asked. Like, so it was interesting how different I was being treated because I had to go this route and had multiple failed attempts. So my story is, the twins, when I was 26, we wanted to have a baby. I wasn't ovulating. I hadn't really had a natural period. Honestly, since I was like 17, I was on birth control starting 14. And so I don't even really know when things changed within my body, because, you're on birth control. It's very, accurate. And I decided to get off the pill. Nothing was happening. I kept thinking I was pregnant, because that's usually what happens if you don't have a period, right? I mean, that's what they tell you. And just disappointment after disappointment. So we went to the OB, and she's like, you're not ovulating. You need to go to a fertility specialist. She sent me to who she recommended at the time. We went, and they're like, you'd be a good candidate for IUI. I was like, sure, whatever. I kind of went in like no questions asked, because I was embarrassed, because I was only 26.
You also didn't know what you didn't know. And that's so normal. Yeah.
Nobody
26
talks
or
about
not.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody talked about it. I was the first of my friends to even get married and, let alone have kids. And on top of that, like my parents, nobody in our generation or our previous generation ever talked about this.
Sure.
It was barely an option. Went in, I said, sure, whatever, tell me what to do. Tried it, Clomid, didn't work, and then ended up doing hormone injections. And we did an IUI. And it was a little bit not as well controlled as I think they do it now. And we got pregnant with our first attempt at an IUI. A few weeks in, I started to bleed a lot. We hadn't gone in for an ultrasound, and I was really scared. Went in, turns out I was pregnant with triplets. So we went from thinking we would never have kids to now we have triplets, and then having to make a difficult decision to reduce to twins, because I am not a very big human. Or just, I just don't have that space in my genetic makeup. And the doctor was like, to be honest, this might be really, really risky for you to try and carry triplets. There could be a potential, health risk for you and definitely for the baby. So we really highly suggest that you have a reduction. So at night, I had to make that decision within 2 weeks, because I had to do it by 9 weeks back then. And they sent me to a clinic in LA, which was like a 2-hour drive, because there wasn't anywhere to do it in San Diego for some reason back then. And so we did. We went to LA, spent the night. Next morning, went into the clinic, kind of closed our eyes. They did it. People always ask me, how did you know what embryo to choose? I did not choose.
Oh my gosh, they
sat there.
Oh, that's so
You
hard.
have to see. I mean, my eyes were wide open. I saw it all happening, which I wish I would have closed my eyes. But they kind of just had to choose whatever was easier to get to it, so that it wouldn't affect the other two.
Mm-hmm.
We left. My husband said, I never want to talk about this again. And we didn't, which, as somebody who now knows needs to talk about everything, that was probably in hindsight so hard, and like really affected us as a couple, because that's such a huge thing to take on. So we carried on our merry way. Like, we had twins. I carried them to term, had them vaginally, had the kids, everything. They were great. One was in the NICU for 11 days just because she was tiny, which that was hard too. But then they were fine. Our marriage was not, but I do talk about that. He has been gracious enough to allow me to open up about that, has answered a lot of questions. And now we are amazing. We do therapy. He does therapy. I feel like that's a whole nother podcast, but it's part of it, I guess.
Well, no, that's really important. So at one point when you first said, when you left the clinic and your husband, Nick, said, we're never going to talk about this again, that sort of shut that part down. And that's so, what just had happened was so traumatic, right? Yeah. And that almost feels like, okay, well, if that's a precursor of what was to come, of course things were going to be hard. I mean, and people don't get a guidebook on how to communicate, and these are hard things. So so what happened next with you and Nick? Because you two are amazing and such stellar parents and present parents. So how did you get to where you are now from where you were?
It was a lot of years of, there was a lot of verbal abuse. There was stuff that I knew he needed to work on, stuff I needed to work on. But, therapy was it was still stigmatized. I mean, sure. I feel like it kind of still is, but it was definitely back then. Outside family members, outside comments, there's so many things that were contributing to what was creating a huge fire for us. And so a few years in, the twins were about 4, I was at my limit. And I just said, I can't do this anymore. So either you seek help or I'm going to have to, or I want a divorce. I mean, I just flat out said it. At that point, I wasn't even, he always says, like, you weren't even crying. I'm like, I think I was just there. Like, I just knew that's what I had to say. And we gave ourselves 6 months because we're like, you need a little time to. I honestly didn't think I didn't think he was going to change. I love him, but I didn't think he was going to change. It's hard. It's hard to change as an adult. But he did. He went into therapy. He started seeing our therapist like on his own once a week. I don't know what the pattern was, but took that on, and we would continue to see her together as a couple. And to this day, we still do. So he still sees her on his own. I do as well. I always have. And we still do couples therapy today. We've figured out things that work for us. We figured out how to communicate, and we figured it out in the sense that we're always learning how to better communicate because everything is constantly changing.
Sure.
Which means the way you communicate is going to constantly change. The time you have to communicate, everything affects kids. I mean, everything. So I think the biggest realization for us is that, one, we need time alone together. Like, we do not as well when, if he's traveling for a long time or we don't have like actual time. We figured out we communicate really well if we're outside, if we're walking, if we're, have kind of like an isolated time to do that. And I've figured out that we need to be as open and just kind of like lay everything out there as possible, including like, what are our weekend plans? What is it going to look like? Like, what time are we going to leave the event? Just talk about everything and don't leave any room for assumptions, because that is what always gets us. And we just realize that it's a work in progress. And I don't think any relationship, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe there's somebody out there that doesn't have anything hard in their relationship.
They must be unicorns.
Fabulous. Yeah. I mean, amazing. Let me know, please.
Yeah, I would love to meet them.
Same. But I think growing up, like, I grew up thinking that you fall in love and you get married and it should be rainbows and butterflies, right? Like, my parents never argued in front of me. They never. And look, I get why, like, I'm not saying you should argue in front of your kids, but we tell our kids, hey, like, we argue and we figure out how to come out of that. We always love each other, but we are two completely different people still living together, having to make every decision together.
Yeah.
Like, you don't ever grow up with the knowledge on how to do that, right? And so I want my kids to know, like, you're going to get married, you're going to fall in love, it's going to be fun and great, but you are going to have to put in work. You are going to have to figure out how to make things work if you want that. I remind them, like, when you go to a friend's house, you're probably not going to see their parents argue. They're not going to do that in front of you. That doesn't mean they don't argue. Because I don't want them to think like, oh, my parents argue, or like, I want them to be as prepared for real life as I can. And to me, this is like such a huge thing that I was not prepared for.
So your parents never really argued in front of you, yeah. And Nick's parents never really argued in front of him.
No, they did.
Oh, they did.
But they went on a, like they
It
were
was like from one extreme to another?
Yes, I think that, they would like yell and they would be very vocal, and that's how he grew up and that's what he grew up seeing. And I do think that that's part of the reason why he was the way he was. And I mean, he'll say it too, it is, a lot of it has to do with how we grow up. Yes, we can as adults take that and say we don't want to be that way anymore, but it takes work, and it takes like a lot of self-conscious work, and I believe therapy, to realize like you don't have to be that way, but how can I remove that from who I am today, right?
1,000%, and provide like great role modelship for your kids. It's funny you're saying that, and I was just thinking like, sometimes like Garrett and I will be talking about something, and we may not necessarily agree because that's
human.
Just human. And our daughter will say, guys, stop fighting. And I'm like, I didn't actually know we were fighting.
Yeah.
Like, is this what fighting sounds like to you? I mean, maybe if that's the case, then that's a double-edged sword of like, that's good, but that's also bad that you think that having not, if not seeing eye to eye is grounds for an argument. I think that's an interesting learning too, right? And our kids they're little sponges. They see everything. And you're right. Like the yelling is like so hard on them. Yeah. But I think having them understand that parents disagree and can speak to each other in a respectful way and not agree, and it's going to be okay. It's not a bad thing to have that. But to your point, I think there's this sort of like still this culture that, oh, everything is like, leave it to Beaver. And you know what I mean? Like I see that a lot around as well, So it's great that you are sharing with your children that disagreements happen.
And like the ability to apologize, because even to this day, like love my parents, but they will not apologize for anything. Like if I bring something up from the past, they'll be like, well, sorry you felt that way. And it's like, the amount of times I apologize to my kids, and I also try to apologize to Nick in front of my kids, because I want them to see like it's okay to make a mistake.
Yeah.
It's also good to apologize if you need, we don't need to be like these apologetic. I get that, like the women as apologetic.
Yes, you don't just say, I'm sorry for dropping the pencil. Totally, I get that.
But, like it's okay if I tell them, hey, I am sorry for overreacting to X, Y, and Z. Or however I handled a situation. I think I apologize to my kids, at least one of them, daily, because I want them to know that like I'm not perfect, and I always want to take their feelings and how they see the world and what they perceive happened, and like make them feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Just make them feel seen, and something that I didn't grow up with. It's like if it wasn't. That's not really how it happened, then that's not how it happened, and we're not going to apologize.
1,000%. I think apologies there's a time and a place for apologies, and I think they're really important too. Yeah. I was laughing because it's also like, again, it's generational. It's the way that we're brought up.
I know.
And you're right. Like, I mean, I have a parent who would, till this day, would never apologize for anything. It's like, a mistake is made and it must be someone else's fault.
100%.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, but what an extra load of energy that is to kind of bear and carry that. So to that end, okay, you're role modeling that you don't have to like carry this like crazy amount of energy, right?
Trying.
And it sounds like you're doing a great job.
Trying, yeah. I mean, it's not always easy because I do carry guilt with me every single day.
Who doesn't, though?
I know.
I mean, as a mom. How do you not?
I don't know.
I mean, tell me how to like to not feel guilty about something.
I know. Like I feel like I had a great day, and then I get in bed and I start like overthinking things. I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that, or I like feel bad about this, or I didn't have enough time for this, or there's always something.
There's always going to be something.
I know.
So now you're juggling teenagers, twins, and a toddler. So how is that dynamic?
So the dynamic is amazing. I was always afraid of it because of the big age gap, because it did take so long. It was 4 egg retrievals, 7 transfers, miscarriages, you name it, for her to get here. By the end, I was just like, I don't even want to do it anymore. I was so depressed. Between all the drugs, all the medication, everything, this isn't really answering your question, but I'm veering off. But
we're getting there. I like where this is going. I mean, as far as
we're going to get to the answer.
Yeah.
But, part of it was just all the hormones that were being put into my body time after time and not ever having time to really recover from them. And also not really understanding that getting off of these drugs would cause depression.
I mean, of course.
It did.
Same. I understand.
Yeah. So after my 6th failed transfer, we were already 3 years in, and we had one normal embryo left. And I told my husband, I don't want to do it. I'm done. And he even had said, I've never seen you this depressed. Like, I could barely roll out of bed. And he's like, but we have one more. Let's just give it a try. We switched doctors. I loved my doctor, my final, and still love him so much. So I said, fine. Like, I know I still want to go for it, but it was just kind of like, he didn't pressure me by any means, but I just needed somebody to say, like, you can do it. Like, you can do it again. So we did. And I'm so grateful I did, because that's our final 7th. That's the one that worked. But there were so many things, I was so scared of, like, it was 9.5-year age gap. And I had kept telling myself, like, I'm only going to do it if, the age gap is this. It was already going to be at least 7 years, but it became 9.5. And I was really, really concerned, but it's the best thing ever. I mean, like, to see them with her, the patience that they have, I don't even have sometimes.
That's amazing.
It's wild. I'm like, can I have some of that? They get along so well. They, she has a different relationship with the twins individually and then them together. One twin has always just been way more motherly. The other twin is just like more whatever and fun. And not that they're not both easygoing, but it's just a different.
Sure. They're different people.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And it's just so incredible to get to witness. I feel so lucky every single day that I get to watch that relationship. And I think for us, sometimes things happen and I'm like, why? There's no explanation. I don't like to say things happen for a reason, because there's a lot of things that have happened in the journey that I don't think needed to happen. Like, let's just throw that out there. But they happened. And this is where we are. And I do think there's something about that age gap that I needed and that works for us, because I got 9.5 years of alone time with my twins. And as a twin mom, as it is, it's already difficult to have.
Sure, I can imagine. I mean, I can't imagine, it's got to be hard.
Yeah. And so I've I can count the time, like now we do quarterly alone date days, whatever, date nights. But anyway, it was really hard to just even have time with them. So to have all those years, just the 4 of us, was really, really special. And I think it created this bond amongst us that, I'm going to have Ariella alone for quite a few years once they go off to school. So I feel like I'm going to get that with both of them in different ways. And so then bringing her into the mix, they were old enough to understand, like, yeah, this is how it's going to be because she's a baby. And I think I was the only one that had a hard time with it when she was born. I felt so bad not being there with the twins because, the baby's born, they need you, you're breastfeeding or whatever, feeding, waking up, all the things. And I just had no energy or space to be with the twins much. And honestly, thank goodness for the pandemic, because it at least allowed them to stay home and I could see them more. But it was hard. Like, Nick had to kind of take on the twin parent role a little bit more.
Right?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure was eye-opening for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's an amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it all just kind of weirdly worked out. Like I said, I had the hardest time because I was feeling like I just want to have dinner with them. Like, why can't I just sit and have dinner with my kids? But you have a newborn and she's not sleeping and you need to be in the nursery. She was a difficult child, difficult baby.
And then you see these other things, and first of all, you had a different experience your first go around. Yeah. And then secondly, we're now in this social sphere where people seem like, oh, I'm having all of these kids. I have 5 or 6 kids and everything's dreamy and great. And I'm out in the world. No. And I literally was like falling on my face after one, I don't know
hard.
How
5 is hard.
Right.
I don't know.
Just wherever you are, it's hard.
Absolutely.
And that first year, but that first, I don't know, first 6 to 8 months is grueling.
It is.
It's wonderful and grueling at the same time.
100%. I think with the twins, I don't remember too much because it was just like a constant feeding machine.
I can only imagine.
But the thing is I was able to stay home because it was just them. Right. So it was like me and them, whatever we did together. I didn't have to mentally be anywhere else. When the baby was born, I mean, obviously they're in a completely different stage of life where they actually did need me quite a bit. And it's not like I wasn't there for them. That was really challenging too, because I'm like, okay, if the baby's sleeping, like I have to go and help the twins with school or with this or with that, whatever it is, which I was great. Obviously, I'm grateful to be able to do, but it's hard and it's exhausting and it's trying to figure out, even to this day, that's the one thing with the age difference that is a challenge. Like we go on vacation and it's like, well, the twins want to go ziplining. Well, she can't go ziplining, you know? And so she's going to have to, thankfully we have the most amazing nanny / like she's pretty much our grandmother now who comes. But I'm like, if she wasn't there, I mean, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of things with the twins that I feel like families that have kids without the huge age gap get to do, right? There's a different sense of, when all of your kids are around the same age, it's a little bit different.
It's a little more structured in terms of activities. Right? Because they can do the same types of things. But when you have a 9-year age gap, my sister and I were 9 years apart. I think we've talked about this. Yeah. And by the way, are so close as a result of that. I feel like a second parent sometimes. Yeah. I have to like rein myself back. I'm like, you're not a parent to an adult, Yeah,
I know.
But it's a really lovely relationship and dynamic.
I love hearing that. I love when people tell me that. I'm like, oh my God, keep telling me. Everybody tell me that they have that because, again, it's amazing right now, and I just hope it continues to be that way. But I do feel the guilt of like, oh my gosh, am I helping the twins enough? Am I there for them enough? Because toddlers, babies are hard, but oh my gosh, teenagers.
So let's talk about teenagers. Ooh. Yeah, I mean, tell me about that. This is like to come for me, but I want to know about your thoughts. What is it like to have two teenagers, twins, who have very different personalities in New York City, and with this entire dynamic? Like, it sounds like you talk a lot with them. You communicate a lot with them.
I try to be very open with them. Like, it's not that I'm trying to be like the cool mom and like try to know, because like, look, I don't really care about the drama in the sense of like,
sure.
But I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. And what I always heard is like, try to connect with them on their level, right? So it's like, what is interesting to them? They're not going to want to like hear about my childhood. They're not going to want to like listen to the music I like. Like, let's connect on their level. And so I try to ask them not just like about their day, but I'm like, so what are your friends doing? Like, what are your friends saying? What, like, I don't even know. Whatever example it is. So they also like to dance. They don't have social media accounts, but that's
awesome. Wait, I want to hear more about that too.
So before we moved to New York, when we told them we were going to move to New York, we said, okay, you will get a phone. They didn't have phones. Mm-hmm. When they turned 13, we were about to move and we said, you will get one. You will get it when we arrive in New York. You don't need it right now. We're still in San Diego. I'm taking you everywhere. I know everywhere that, like you're never alone. But when you move, fine. But we have a contract that's about 3 pages long. They read through it. We kind of agreed on different things. The biggest thing for Nick and I is no social media until they're probably 18 at this point.
Wait, you drew out a physical contract with them that says no social media.
Well, it says a lot of things, but one of them is no social media. It says a few of the repercussions. The lying or breaking rules would mean we take the phone, but then we're like, wait, but then how do we figure out where they are? And they would be paying for a watch and paying for the service to keep a watch in service. And that's what they'll get if they end up having to lose the privilege of having a phone. The phone is a privilege.
Absolutely.
And we have, like I said, quite a few rules. They dock it when they get home from school. I have a dock in the kitchen where and then the hours that they're able to use it is 7 to 7. And I said all this stuff can change, but we have to see that one, we're building trust and continuing to build trust, meaning not just with the phone, with everything else. You're doing your homework, you're staying on top of all your stuff, but you're also telling me and you're communicating and you're, so that's something. Another rule is I'm able to look at their phone whenever I want. I ask them, but
I think that's really
it
important
is what it is.
because they don't have a fully formed brain. I mean, no one does at that age, not until you're 25, right? So of course you're going to look at their phone because there are crazy things coming at us from all like sides.
Yeah.
So they actually signed a physical contract. Do you have it like notarized or like what did you do?
No, but we have it in our, like, we have some files that are important and we have it in there. And we said, like these are things that we can always come back to, and we always give them the opportunity to speak what's on their mind, right? So if they have a problem with, they have a problem with all the rules, but you know what I mean? If they one day like want to open this back up and, want to tell us why or whatever, they want to change something, they have the floor to do that. And we will always respect that and listen to them. In fact, honestly, one of them had written to me a letter as to why she thought they should have phones. And I'm not even kidding. That's the reason they have phones, because she was very compelling. Her argument made perfect sense because we were going to do a watch here. Yeah. And I was like, okay, like this is good. And so I want to constantly reward their communication and reward their honesty and reward them really adhering to this contract and to the rules. And so I said, like the more you guys are open with me and communicate and I feel like I can trust you, the more doors will open for you. And so I want to show them that. So when they do good things, like, and not good or bad, they're not bad kids at all. They're amazing. And just because they do something that's bad doesn't mean they're a bad child.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yes, of
course. But, when they do show that they're trustworthy, a little bit more freedom happens. But it's hard. It's hard. And living in the city, to be honest, has actually made certain things easier. Aside from just like commuting, because I know I've told you a million times, I hated California for all of the driving I had to do and sit in my car and how many hours
you don't
I've
really
lost
like
in
driving.
my life. I hate driving.
Yeah, you don't like driving at all.
So here's the thing. I've never loved driving, but I think what happened was that like I had to be in my car for easily 5 hours a day.
Just the to and from and the everywhere in between?
To and the from. And especially with Nick travels a lot, it just became, I'm like counting up the time. And I don't see people. Like there could be a week or two that would go by without me speaking to another like person other than Nick at night, and that's it.
Nick at night.
Nick at night. So yeah, I hated that. But here, it's just been like so nice. I see people all the time. I'm able to like go on walks with my friends just after drop off. I have community, which is something I didn't know I needed, because even when we moved, we were like, we're not gonna. We have our friends. We're fine. And it was like we got taken in by so many amazing people that I was like, whoa, I needed this. I really, really needed it. And we're so lucky that so many people have been amazing. Like I feel like I have a group of friends, which is wild. I did not think that was going to happen. And that was on like the back burner for me when we moved. I'm like,
but that's the beautiful thing about New York City, right? Yeah. Is that there is this inherent community that you can get when you put yourself out there, but also when you're open to receiving that and you're actively interested in being a part of something. And you already were in the online space, but I think back into the period of time where we were so like socially centric. I knew that I needed that community because I had been in New York City for so long. And I had these pockets of communities, whether it was through my daughter's school, whether it was the Wing. There was a thing called the Wing at one point, or these little private clubs that had their own little communities and things like that I was a part of. Like, I knew what that looked like. I also knew that I could be free to be me within that. And so you find your pockets and your people. Yeah. And that's why I was scared shitless when I moved to the burbs. I was like, am I going to find this? And luckily you just naturally like find your people. The city, you're right. It can happen so easily and quickly.
Yeah. No, it can. And I like when you say you're free to be who you, that was a huge thing for me. And I've always felt that in New York. So whether I was just visiting or now that I live here, there was something, and that's what I always would come at there. Why do you live in New York? Like, do you just like to shop? I'm like, no. It's not about the shop.
Do you just love to shop?
Yeah.
Someone said.
A lot of people are like, or is it because of the shows? I'm like, well, yeah, I love Broadway. But like, I mean, I always tell Nick, this is like a little secret. I was like, if you find a way to put me on stage, I will be a tree. I don't even care. It's like my bucket list. I'm like, pay for them to put me. So if anybody's listening and can get me on Broadway, I will be there. I'll put in the work.
I love that.
But anyway, no. And so, I mean, it was just like, I said, no, I just have this feeling there that I can be who I am. Like, it doesn't matter what I'm wearing. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Like, nothing matters. It's just who you are and how you feel. And like, my daughter we moved here and she casually said that to me one day. She's like, I just feel like I can just be me. I'm like, oh, music to my ears. Like, this is why we're here, you know? And it was so cool to hear her say that. I mean, I don't think I plugged that in for her, but.
And you got that from her at such a young age, right?
Yeah.
Like I had to wait to my 20s to move here to have that experience.
Yeah.
And you're living it now and it's a gift.
I think so.
You know, and you've been talking about it, so it's right for your family.
Yeah. It's been amazing to see them here. And yeah, I mean, like you said, teenagers are hard. I think it's not even that they're hard. It's just, it's a time when I feel like as a parent, they need me more than they've ever needed me. Like maybe when they were newborn, just because like physically, you know?
Sure.
But mentally, and it's one of those things that it doesn't end when you put them, you know, like Ariella, bedtime, 7:00, she's fine. We'll talk again in the morning. The twins, it's like, one, they don't go to sleep until probably after I go to sleep. So it really never ends, like parenting. But even when I'm in bed and they're in their rooms, like my God, are they okay? Are they depressed? Are they thinking about this? What happened at school? Like, why didn't they tell me this? This is what happens to my head because you know how you were when you were a teenager and that's what you start remembering. And I create these crazy stories in my head that 99% of them are made up stories, but that's the worry that you carry on when you have teenagers that I was not expecting. And so it's like, I have to have the energy for the 4-year-old and the patience, but then it's like, okay, when she goes to bed, I need to get that second win so that when my kids come home from like their gymnastics, their dance, whatever at 7:30 or 8, like that's when we have dinner. That's when I have to talk to them about everything. Have you done your homework? Did you email blah, blah, blah? Did you get your devices out of your room? Because they also can't have them overnight in their room. It's so many little things that you're worried about because they're teens.
So many. You know what I also love is that you are so out there and vocal online, right? And like socially.
Yeah.
And yet you have parameters for the whole family so that it doesn't overtake your life. You're not like in front of a camera all day long, which is so awesome because this has become an extension too, right? Like it almost became a little bit of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but almost a little bit of a career too, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I've always liked to do some, you know, I've always liked doing things. And Nick and I, from an early point in our marriage, were like, this is kind of how we want our roles to be, which that's also been really helpful with our marriage is like solidifying roles because for us that was important. And then I kind of tell him to get out of my office, like the house. I'm like, I have control here. I still like doing something. So I, you know, trained to be a yoga teacher when I was going through IVF. I taught yoga. And then, you know, that time when we couldn't teach in person anymore hit. I had a couple different things going. Before that, I owned a mobile gymnastics preschool company.
That is so cool.
Yeah. It was fun, but it became like more of a stress than not. So it was like, this is ridiculous. I'm just constantly stressed. And I have my kids that are 4 and need me. And so I've always had something. And so this has really been so cool because for a few years I didn't do it because I didn't even know what an influencer was when I was.
Oh my gosh. And I wish there needs to be another word for it.
I hate that
because
word.
there are,
not like an
right?
Influencer.
Right. No, you're not an influencer. I mean, I'm
just not good at that. I don't know.
But you're not talking about something just to talk about it to make money. Like, I feel like it's what the influencer term has morphed into, no?
For sure. I think so. I don't like, if I talk about a product and look, I want to get paid if I'm going to talk about a product.
And you should.
But it's a product that I will stand by.
Absolutely.
It's not just like, sure, they want to pay you. You know, I'm like, oof, I don't think I can talk about that because I would never use it or, and it's totally fine if that's who you are and that's what you do. I completely respect that. Because I'm so raw and honest, like, I don't know if I could even do it and people would believe me.
And you've turned things down before.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have. I actually just did, like, yesterday.
And I think it's important.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
It is. I do. And again, like, there's people, we'll never know, right? Because there's people that maybe don't use the products and they're really good. They're really good at selling and acting and whatever. I don't think I am. It's turned into, like, I would say, a part-time job that honestly has given me a really good sense, like, of purpose. And it's fun. And, the minute that it's not that anymore, then I'm lucky enough to be able to, privileged enough to be able to let it go. I don't need it for the money, but it's nice. It's nice to have my own little business that, I can manage and I can feel proud of. And I show the girls, and the one thing I always get is like, well, your kids are on social media, but they don't have social media. It's like, yeah, they don't have social media, meaning, like, they're not worried about anything. They're not scrolling. They're not liking. They're not creating content. But if they're in my content, I always ask them for their permission. They multiple times will tell me no, and then I don't. And if they have any part of any collaboration or brand deal I do, I pay them.
That is really not only fair, but just that's generous.
I mean,
that's kind,
Thank you. I
never really thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really either. Even today, if I look at creators, I don't ever think about that, but there are people. And so it kind of sparked.
Seems fair.
Yeah. I mean, and then it kind of gets them excited to help me.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they're more fun to watch than I am. So, yeah.
I mean, I think you're all pretty fun. Just saying.
Well, thanks.
Let me lead with, you've manifested so many different things, right? You manifested Ariella, right? I mean, that was a labor of love. True. You moved to New York City. You use your voice. Your relationship with Nick is really solid. So many things have happened for you as a result of, your thoughtful, caring persistence. So is there something else you're manifesting that you have yet to share?
Oh, God. What are we doing right now? I think for a minute I'm breathing, because I was just telling this to Nick. I just turned 41 like 4 days ago.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. But I feel so much more at peace this year. And I mean, last year was like we were getting ready to move, and it was like the anxiety of turning 40. And there's so many things that were happening. And this year, I just told him, I was like, I just feel good and, like, at peace. I'm where we wanted to be. Like, my kids are driving my social calendar and then some, but I'm figuring it out, and I'm figuring out how to make time, for the two of us. So I think right now I'm just kind of like cruising. We have a few travel trips coming up, but there's not like a huge thing. And I'm so happy about that. I think, like, it was 10 years of wanting to move here, of constant travel, because I just love it so much and I had to be here. And then it was, 4+ years of infertility and IVF to get Ariella. And then, post Ariella and trying to get my period back, which I did, like all these things that were big moments for me that I feel like now I'm just kind of like taking a back seat and watching and, like, enjoying. I am amazed by seasons. I sound like I'm 85 years old, but I could sit and, like, watch every day. I tell Nick, I'm like, the grass is greener. He's like, are you gonna say that every day? I'm like, I think so, because I've never experienced seasons. So it's just little things like that that I have been waiting for, that I'm trying to take in.
Sounds like you're really living in the moment.
I am. I'm trying. I don't know if I'll ever fully be, because I'm just not that person, but because I am a planner.
I am too, but I mean, it sounds like you're being present in the moment, even if you're reflecting forward.
I'm trying.
So, question. I promise this is my last question.
You're fine.
If you had a platform to share with every single person in the world, every woman in the world, about getting to a place and space of presence and comfort in motherhood, what would it be?
Like, how to get there?
Like, how to get there, how you got there. What does that look like?
I think it would just be trusting that, and way easier said than done, but trusting that things fall into place. With that said, it doesn't mean like sit on the couch and watch everything happen. I believe that you have to put in work, whatever you want to call it. But trusting your gut, I guess, like trusting that you have the answers, you have the knowledge, or you have the knowledge and power to go seek more knowledge and power, and trust yourself that you can get to the place that works for you, because motherhood looks different for every single person. And what's comfortable for me might not be comfortable for somebody else, might just not work physically, mentally, financially, whatever. Everybody's in such a different place, and so for me to say like, oh, you get a Spanish speaking nanny and you have to make sure that they're amazing and that they're like a grandmother and that you have the 9.5 year age gap, like that's unrealistic, So for me, it was, now looking back, it's just trusting that what your journey looks like is really the right one for you. As long as you feel like you've trusted your gut in getting there. Does that make sense?
It does. And in follow-up,
Yep.
you have done such an amazing job, it seems like, of manifesting, a beautiful life that you're trying to be present in, because we all are.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend to others insofar as realizing their dreams?
My husband always laughs because he's like, you are relentless. Like you're so persistent until, like the amount of times he'll tell you that I told him I wanted to move here is like exhausting. And I'm shocked he put up with that. Same with having another kid. Luckily, he's always been on the same page as me. He's just like a little bit more of a realist. Like, we can't do that right now. So I've learned that like there's really no is not an answer. I don't want my kids to hear that, but it's kind of how I live, like it's like, okay, we can't do this way. Like, well, then there's going to be a different way we can, and maybe we're not going to live here, but maybe we'll live somewhere better, or like that's right for us. And like, where else can we, like I always use moving to New York as an example, but I wanted to move 10 years ago and he's like, no, we can't. Like, we can't just up and go, and like financially and everything. And so I said, okay, well, just tell me that one day we can like entertain that. Because if you tell me right now that that's no, I feel like I deteriorate as a human. I like to have things to look forward to, especially if there are things like I really want, right? So for me, nothing has to happen like right now. I mean, it'd be great if that's how the world worked, but I know it doesn't necessarily have to happen right now. But I think allowing yourself to know, like, no doesn't mean like no forever.
Yeah, it doesn't mean never.
It doesn't mean never. It means like maybe there's a different way that you have to go about it. Maybe, and that's how I feel like everything we've gotten in our life has been. Because I don't think I can tell you one thing that has happened to us, like as a married couple, or even personally, that I've asked for and it just happened. Nothing. Everything has been hard. It's been hard to get to. And that's okay. I think it like makes it that much sweeter, but again, even like our marriage, our kids, everything has been like challenging. And we joke about that because like you asked me about the townhome in West Village. Like we found it. It was amazing. And we're like, yeah, let's renovate it. It's going to be great. Like we'll go. And it's been 3 years and we still haven't been able to get all the permits, which that's a whole nother podcast. But you know what I'm saying? Like nothing's been, and that's why I like to be so honest in social, because it's like, yeah, you guys might see like the pretty photo we took on vacation, or like, that we bought a townhome, whatever it is. But it's like, you don't really know the backstory, or like what's actually happening, or like how long it took us to get here, or like starting a business. Like people see, oh, you have this amazing business. Your husband has this great company. I'm like,
it's always a journey.
But like we had to give up our life savings to start it and cross our fingers that it worked.
Yeah, of course.
Like the stress behind that and what it did to our marriage. Like there's so many things that like people only see what they want to see or what you're showing and sharing. And I get that. If I don't share, how will you ever know? I don't expect you to.
Sure.
But like remembering that, everything has a journey. And it's, I don't know. It
requires work.
Requires work. Everything. at least in our life.
I think that what I'm learning from you is that your persistence has really paid off and that hard work has truly also helped you get there.
Yeah.
And your not right nows have turned into when it's time.
When it's time.
And I love that.
Yeah. I like that. It's a good way of, thank you for putting my long-winded answer into a pretty little sentence.
No, you said it all. And I just, I
appreciate it.
Taking it all in. Erin, thank you so much for joining me today.
For having me. We feel like we could sit here for 500 hours.
I really feel like we could.